Welcome to CBS News Primetime. I'm John Dickerson. Not guilty. Two simple words, an official proclamation made in a court of law by millions over the years, but never by a former president of the United States until today. Surrounded by Secret Service and with the world watching, Mr. Trump walked himself before a federal judge to hear the charges against him. 34 felony counts of falsifying business records. While the Trump campaign capitalized on his arraignment, New York City rolled out the blue carpet. The full force of the NYPD was in uniform alongside other law enforcement partners, closing down parts of the city. The former president is back in Florida now, heading to Mar-a-Lago, where in about an hour he will deliver remarks from his estate to supporters. We'll have more coverage of that. Plus, team coverage with our legal expert, Rebecca Roife, and our chief election and campaign correspondent, Robert Costa, and more. But we'll start with CBS News congressional correspondent Scott MacFarlane.
A defiant stance from former President Trump as he left Trump Tower this morning, but after waving to supporters as he entered Manhattan criminal court, surrendered to authorities, and briefly appeared before cameras, Trump looked noticeably somber. He had been arrested, the first formal criminal charges for any former president. There was no mugshot taken, but he was fingerprinted and given a case number, like any other defendant. Flanked by his lawyers inside the courtroom, Trump listened as the judge's clerk read off the charges against him. Asked for a plea, the former president remained seated and said not guilty. He said nothing as he left the courtroom. Trump is charged with 34 felony counts of falsifying business records to conceal hush money payments to 3 individuals who were threatening to reveal negative information about him during the 2016 election. One involved former adult film star Stormy Daniels and $130,000 in payments to her, orchestrated by former Trump fixer Michael Cohen. Another payment, $150,000, to former Playboy playmate Karen McDougal, who alleged she had a sexual relationship with Trump while he was married and was prepared to make the story public. An allegation Trump denies. And another payment, $30,000, to a Trump Tower doorman who was trying to sell information about a child he claimed Trump had fathered out of wedlock. Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg spoke after the arraignment.
Under New York state law, it is a felony to falsify business records with intent to defraud and an intent to conceal another crime. That is exactly what this case is about. 34 false statements made to cover up other crimes. These are felony crimes in New York State, no matter who you are. We cannot and will not normalize serious criminal conduct.
Trump's lawyer said they plan to file a motion to dismiss this case within the next several months.
Today's unsealing of this indictment shows that the rule of law died in this country. Because while everyone is not above the law, no one's below it either. And if this man's name was not Donald J. Trump, there is no scenario we'd all be here today.
Sources close to the former president tell CBS he is gaming at how the arrest can help him politically. Today, sending out this fundraising email, selling a T-shirt with a fake mugshot on it, on sale for $47. He's running to be the 47th president. Trump also continued to attack Bragg and the judge in the case, Juan Merchan, who oversaw a previous trial where Trump's real estate company was convicted of tax fraud. Only a few Republicans were in New York to support the former president, including Georgia Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene and New York's George Santos. But several top members of the GOP called the arrest shameful and a travesty.
Scott MacFarlane joins me now. Scott, when you saw this all laid out by the district attorney, what did you make of the totality of the charges and the timeline laid out by the district attorney?
Yeah, the next hearing is going to be in December, according to the judge in this case, and the trial tentatively scheduled for January. But my first impression was, for now, that's the schedule, but they're going to get flooded with motions from the Trump defense team, likely including a motion to dismiss, potentially a motion to change venue. Trump has said he wants to move this to Staten Island, where he thinks there may be a more sympathetic jury. They're going to get flooded with paper over the next few weeks and months. All of the trajectory for scheduled hearings and trial are subject to change.
Scott, you witnessed the former president in the arraignment. What did you see? What struck you?
He was so uniquely understated, a word with which we rarely associate the former president. He walked slowly down the aisle to his seat. He sat without pen and paper in front of him, with his hands folded in front of him, and he only spoke when spoken to. when Judge Merchan asked him questions like, do you understand your rights? He gave a point-blank answer. When the clerk of the court asked Donald Trump how he pleads, he said in a relatively forceful and audible voice, not guilty. Nothing more, nothing less. No adjectives, no other words on that issue. And he walked past the cameras that were allowed inside the hallways, bypassing a chance to speak. It was an understated day for a man who's so rarely called understated.
And Scott, finally, there was a great concern about the kind of circus atmosphere, the protests in Lower Manhattan. What did it end up being like in terms of the in terms of those who were there to support Donald Trump and those who were there to shout down those who were there to support Donald Trump?
That's a really good question. First of all, the reason why there weren't cameras in the court was because the judge didn't allow it, but also the Trump defense team said they didn't want them there, worried of a circus-like atmosphere in the courthouse. So inside the courthouse, it was rather plain, rather orderly, rather regimented. Outside was something completely different. There were protesters. There was an even louder group of counter-protesters. You hear that noise behind me? That's the police putting the bike rack barriers away for the day. They needed them to keep this crowd contained. There was that protest by Republican member of Congress Marjorie Taylor Greene, which was relatively quiet and small. The counter-protesters were here as well, and it did have a circus-like atmosphere on the outside.
The day ends not with a whimper, but with a bang of bike barriers. Scott MacFarlane from Lower Manhattan. Thank you, Scott.